Hi everyone, Claudia here from Lighting Clarity. So today there are two topics. The first topic I'm going to talk about what it is that you can do that's going to change your energy, bring things, manifest things faster. They are very simple tools and align you more with the divine creator, God, yeah? Because essentially you're actually asking God for what it is that you want. When I pray to God. I don't pray to the archangels or my spirit guides. They're on the same level as me. They're on the same level as you. The masters, your spirit guides, the angels. I pray to God, but I ask that God's will be done. That they do what God's will is. That God works through them to me. And that is what I ask for. That God, you please work through my holy team for me today and for my clients. So what I do every morning that allows me to be open to more abundance, and it actually does work, is as soon as I wake up, I say thank you to God for what I have. First thing I wake up, thank you, God. You could call God the divine creator. I often say thank you, divine creator. You can say thank you, God. You can say thank you, great spirit. Thank you, divine universe. Whatever words you want to use for the creator. And I thank God for the things that I have. I thank God for my business. I thank God for my children. I thank God for my husband. I thank God for all the things that I'm grateful for and all the things that I want to see growth in. And I also thank God and ask God to continue working through my holy team that work with me and my clients, and the holy team that also works directly with me as my own guides. I ask that God's will be done in all that I'm needing help with. I say this when I wake up each morning. It's very quick, it's very concise. And saying good morning to God just aligns you with your true self, your authentic self. And you'll feel that invisible connection to a greater being that brings in a deeper sense of peace than what you've ever felt. And also that feeling that you're not here by accident, you haven't been forgotten, and that there is a greater purpose to why it is you exist, whether it's on earth that you exist or in the heavens. Do it as an experiment for about 10 days. I'm saying more than 10, they've just said to me. Do it as an experiment for 14 days, 15 days. Put a note up next to your bedside table. As soon as you wake up, start saying thank you. You're going to find when you're thanking for the things that you want to see growth in, for the changes that are ahead of time that you're thanking for, as well as what you already have, you're going to find a lot of miracles and a lot of situations begin to shift. And you begin to shift. It is really a divine blessing when you live your life like this. And it's an important tool that I wanted to give you. And I have a friend who says she doesn't pray, but when she does pray, she says, God, I don't know how to do this, but I'm just going to ask, can you just bring this in? She never grew up with any religion. And she finds whenever she does, it is brought in very quickly. Because she asks and she lets go as best she can, as best we all can. So pray as you are. Pray in the way on pray who you are. Pray as you are. You don't have to be someone else. You have to be what the religions tell you to be. You don't have to be kneeling down. You don't have to be lighting candles. You don't have to be doing any of that. You just have to stand there and say, hey, listen, sorry, can I just call you in, please? Divine Creator, Universe, can I have some help here with this? Because my child just isn't listening and whatever else is going. Could you just help me be specific, be clear, be commanding, and give it? That's it. I command the help, I'm asking, and I'm giving it to you. And I thank you ahead of time for the assistance that comes in. Direct, clear, concise, mean it. You are an extension of the Creator. We all are. We just forget that when we're down here. Forge that connection. Okay, now, the next topic. I thought it would be interesting for me to share some topics with a topic to do with spirit, those in spirit who perhaps are around us, who have passed away. So I've got a couple of stories, which are just interesting stories. You're welcome to listen. They are fun stories though. So some of them are my stories and some of them are not my stories. And I will tell you which is mine. So, I used to do house clearings years ago. I don't really do them that often. But I used to do house clearings, and I moved into a rental years ago. I was living in Western Australia. My own house was being rented and I needed another place to live in while the tenants were vacating my house that was rented. So I was renting somewhere else. And I moved to this really, really old house that used to be a really lovely house. I would have said around 1979, but I hadn't done any renovations to it. And I was meaning to do a house clearing on it when I moved in, but I just ran out of time. Anyway, as the weeks went on, I kept meaning to do it. I didn't do it. I could feel energy around the house. Standing next to my son, who at the time was about 9 years old, was a boy of about 12. And I was just like, he came out of the kitchen. My son asked me a question. There was a kid standing next to him about 12, quite a bit taller than my son. And I was like, I have to do a house clearing. I have to move this little boy into the light. I felt incredibly sorry. I thought, my goodness, his poor mother. This little boy was walking around, and there was more than just him. I had other people. So I put my son to bed that night, my kids, and my son. He looked at me, 9-year-old, and he said, "Mum, I have to say something." I said, "Well, yes, sometimes when I go to sleep at night lately, when I've been going to sleep, I can hear someone in the yard. It sounds like somebody's playing." And I said, "Oh," he said, "No, it's just the leaves." I went, "Oh gosh." So he's hearing the boy, and the boy's been playing in the yard. My heart went out. The next day, the kids went to school, and I moved energy out, and there was about 5 souls who went into the light. And this little boy, before he went to the light, he stopped. He turned around, and I've never had any of them do this. He looked at me and he said, "Thank you." And I had Mother Mary there receiving him. And I was really taken back, and I said, "You're so welcome, darling." I said, "Please, you're so welcome. You're fine. Please go into the light." And off he went. Mother Mary took him. I just felt, that was just by the by. That's one of the stories. I love what I do for a living. I feel sorry when I see things like that happen. When I hear people are telling me they're going on a ghost tour in a house, I'm just like, why would you do that? What is this fascination? Are they in the zoo, these people? These people are trapped souls. And some of them are not nice people, I can assure you. We have here in Melbourne, there used to be the old jail that was open in the 1800s, and it was in one of the suburbs in the centre of Melbourne, we'll say, this big bluestone jail. I think a lot of you who are Melburnians will know Pentridge. Anyway, they decided to move all the fellas, because it was a men's jail, outside the skirts of Melbourne, wherever they are out in the country, that's fine. But they kept the bluestone jail that was there from 1800s. Now, this bluestone jail was only closed, 20 years ago. Not that long ago, 25 years ago. Now you can imagine, it's a massive jail. All of the trapped souls that died there, they're there. So they opened up the jail for tours and letting people through. And I had a friend of mine, she was an older lady that I knew. She was doing the tours. She was volunteering to do the tours. I remember thinking, this isn't a good idea. And she did the tours. After a period of time, she said to me, short period, she goes, "Oh, I've stopped doing them." I said, "Oh, you're not volunteering anymore?" She says, "Absolutely not." She goes, "I felt sick every time." I thought to myself, of course you felt sick. There are people in there that need to be moving to the light. They're not. This isn't a joke. So I'm going to say to you, don't go doing ghost tours. This isn't entertainment. These are people who are trapped and they need to be moved onto the light. Some of them don't want to be moved onto the light. They just want to cause havoc, okay? And some of them are just, they're wanting to be grounded to the earth. They don't want to go into the heavens for whatever reason. So anyway, so I've got a few more stories. They're interesting stories. So, I remember even sitting in a cafe. I lived in Perth, and I was talking to a friend, Liz, who's another clairvoyant. The whole time I was talking to her, we were sitting here, and there were these benches that were up, these little tables in the centre that were high up, and you could sit at them with stools. We were sitting on a couch area. The whole time I was looking at Liz, I thought there was a guy sitting there drinking coffee. He was wearing a brown, worn-out leather jacket. It looked a bit dated to me. And the whole time I was talking to her for a long time. Then I eventually lifted my eyes, and he wasn't there. And I went, oh, I looked back at Liz, boom, there he is. And he started to laugh into his coffee because he realised I could see him. He thought it was entertaining. He wasn't bothering me, but he was being a smart aleck, not the word I want to use, being a smart aleck. And I went, oh. And it was really annoying because it became quite prominent. And I said to Liz, explained it, and Liz looked, she goes, I can't see him. I said, all right. She looks back at me and I said, can you see him now? She goes, no, I could still see him. So I was determined to ignore him while he was having his joke. And Liz had said to me there'd been a lot of druggies around that area that had died. And he looked to be about late 80s, early 90s extreme. She said, so she's not surprised. And I was like, whatever. So it's interesting. Just because we're both psychics and clairvoyants doesn't mean that what I can see, you can see, or what you can see, I can see. I have another friend who's a medium, and she was driving past one night a house that was for sale. It was dark. She looked, and there was a woman in the driveway wearing a pink dressing gown waving at her. Well, she got a bit of a fright. She got home and she rang me. And I said, well, does it mean that if I was in the car with you that I would see her? You did. I don't know what determines what in being able to see, who can see, who can't. But it was interesting. I also had another situation. I'm getting to a really good story after this one. A friend of mine had a son that was walking back from school, and he saw on the side of the road a man sitting there, and he knew it was not someone that was alive. And the guy was just sitting on the side of the road. Then he ended up noticing my friend's son, and they locked eyes for a moment, and the guy nodded his head, smiled for a moment, and disappeared. He was aware a little boy could see him, and he did the right thing in disappearing, because that boy wasn't so happy when he got in the car. He said, oh, I'm pretty sure he wasn't alive. And his mother said there was nobody there. I couldn't see them, but I appreciate you did. You know, he's obviously got abilities that are coming in for him. But it is interesting that they can see that you can see. And anyway, so getting to a really, really big, interesting story with this. A friend of mine many years ago, and she is a psychic medium. We're going back to the early 2000s. Was in a pub with her then husband. Her then husband was a very grounded, solid fellow, wasn't really into any of this, didn't think about it, not interested. They were in a pub, and they met a couple in the pub who approached them, and they started having a chat, and they said, we're looking for a farm to buy. And this couple in the pub said, actually, we're selling our farm. It's a big acreage. And the lady was wearing a brown floral dress, and the gentleman was wearing a suit that was a bit ill-fitting. And they talked for a little while in the pub, and they said, look, we really want you to come and look at our property. We are selling it. And they said, well, how much are you looking? And they said, well, we're looking at it in the vicinity of perhaps this amount. And my friend and her husband said, all right, well, we'll come and have a look at it. And they said, okay, would you be able to come tomorrow? And they specified a time. And my friend and her husband said, yep, we'll be there. Absolutely. They said, are you sure you're coming? Because we don't waste our time. My friend and her husband said, no, we will be there. So they turned up with the address that this couple had given them. And when they turned up, they saw the big acreage. It had been ploughed and flattened. And on the front of the acreage was a big sign, and it said, high-rise apartments will be coming on this property. She looked at her husband, they looked at each other, and they were confused by this. They noticed in the corner there was a very old farm, and farmhouse, and they waited and waited for this couple, wanting them to explain all of this that they were seeing. The couple never turned up. They went home, they looked at each other, they looked up the fact that it's actually going to be built, it's already been sold, high-rise apartments. They said to each other, well, why would these people tell us to come look at their farm when it's already, there's high-rise apartments? Clearly they've sold it to somebody else. They didn't think anything else of it. A couple of years later, my friend decided to look at the high-rise apartments went up. She decided to look at the history of the property. And when she looked at the history of the property, the history had said that it had been owned by a husband and wife who had passed many, many years earlier. They had passed of their own hand. They weren't able to maintain their mortgage on their property. They had taken it badly, and they had passed on their own hand, the two of them. And they had no children, so the government took the property. And my friend realised they hadn't been speaking to people who were alive. They were speaking to two spirits, though they had presented themselves in the pub that night as alive. And it was darkish. And both she and her then husband, who wasn't a medium or anything like that, or really thought about any of this, was actually talking to them as well. And they gave full address for this. So they didn't want anybody building high-rise apartments on their property. It's a pretty amazing story, and she's a very, very close friend of mine. I have another story. It's the final one. When I was living in Perth, I was part of the SNU, and the lady that ran the National Spiritualist Union Church also ran Circle, which was mediumship, and I was a student, and I'd stand up at church and I would give, mediumship readings and all the rest as a student, and she was my teacher. And we're in class one day, and I said to her, have you ever seen, a ghost, a spirit, alive? I don't like to use the word ghost, a person that's passed that's there. And she said to me, she had a look at us all for a moment, she said, yes, I have. She's a very grounded lady, my teacher, older than ourselves at the time. And she said, I was doing the dishes one day in the kitchen, and next to me a man appeared, and he said, hello. And she dropped the dishes in the sink, got the gloves on, and she's looking at him and she says, got a shock, she says, what do you want? He said, I've passed away recently, and I want you to go and see my girlfriend. This is the address, and I want you to give her this message from me. It was a real short message. She looked at him and she was completely shocked, because she'd never seen anybody who was in spirit standing in front of her like this, someone who'd passed. And she said to him, no, I'm not doing that. Your girlfriend hasn't come to me for a reading, and I'm not going to go knock on her door randomly and say that you have a message for her from me as a medium. She says, I'm not doing that. If she comes to me for a reading, I will give that message. Otherwise, I'm not doing this. And you're to leave my home right now. Out. Go. He said, all right. He turned around and he walked through the wall to leave. Well, she went and sat down immediately, because it wasn't a normal day-to-day occurrence, though she was a medium and gave mediumship readings. Interesting stories. Your loved ones can materialize if they learn to do it in spirit. They can do it if they really want to. I don't know how, but there is a way to materialize to be able to assist and come in and speak to a loved one if that's a reason. So some of you may have your own stories of having encountered maybe a grandparent or someone who's coming quickly to give you a message. The way in which I channel if I'm doing mediumship for a client is I don't see them obviously through the naked eye standing there. I see them internally. I can describe what they look like, what they're wearing, what they used to say, and they come through quite clearly. I do see them, and I will see spirits around me in the house, not in my home, but when I'm out. But I'm not seeing them in the physical. I'm seeing them psychically. I go, oh, there I can see someone standing next to that lady in the grocery store. Not that I go around looking. It just happens, yeah. Or I'm getting someone following me and I'll have to say, no, you're not welcome to come back with me, thanks. Interesting. Thought I'd give you some stories. I hope it's been interesting for you. Let me know in the comments. Many blessings. That was a mouthful. I'll see you all again later this week. Thanks, everyone.